When my grandson called me boring, he laughed like it was nothing. But his words stayed with me, longer than they should have. He had no idea who I used to be, the artists I discovered, the music I helped create, the battles I fought, and won. He only saw gray hair, slow steps, and quiet dinners. But I was not always this quiet. One day I decided it was time to remind him, and maybe remind myself too. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Margaret. I am 63 years old. I live in a small town outside of Portland, Oregon. It is quiet here. The kind of place where everyone knows your name, and people wave at each other from across the street. Every morning I wake up around 6. I stretch my legs, open the window, and listen to the birds. The world always feels softer in the early hours. I make my coffee the same way I always have. 2 spoons of ground beans, a pinch of cinnamon, and a little honey. Then I sit in the kitchen, alone, with the sun slowly rising through the curtains. My days are simple now. I water the garden, I sweep the porch. I read a chapter from one of the old novels I have already read 3 times. Sometimes I call my daughter, Amanda. Sometimes she calls me. We talk about the weather, or the children, or something she saw on television. I do not tell her everything. Not because I am hiding anything, but because I know she is busy and I do not want to be a burden. My grandson Jacob is 12. He comes over every Saturday. He loves video games and music that sounds like robots dancing. I do not understand it, but I smile and listen. He is growing fast, taller than I expected, louder than I remember. He is a good boy. Even if he rolls his eyes when I talk about the past, to him, I am just Grandma, the one who makes sandwiches and asks too many questions. Sometimes he says things without thinking, like, "You are kind of boring, Grandma." He does not mean to hurt me, but the words still find a place to rest inside me. I suppose I have lived this way for a long time now, quietly, softly, like a book placed back on the shelf. But I was not always this way. There was a time when the phone rang every hour, when I wore heels and red lipstick and stayed up all night in recording studios, when people said my name with respect, when music was not just something I listened to, it was something I breathed. But that life, it feels like a story I once read in someone else's journal. Still, sometimes, when I hear a certain song, I feel her again. The woman I used to be. And yet, in this house, with its ticking clocks and soft carpets, I stay quiet. Because that is what people expect of women like me. Until something changes. But we are not there yet. For now, I sip my coffee, open the curtains a little wider, and tell myself this is my normal life. It started with a small moment. One of those things you could easily ignore, if you wanted to. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I always go to the library on Tuesdays. They have a quiet reading room upstairs with wide windows and warm light. I like to sit there and read old music magazines, the kind that still write about soul and blues and vinyl. As I was walking past the front desk, I heard 2 teenage girls whispering. One of them said, "Why is she always here? She is so old." Then they laughed, quietly, but not quiet enough. I pretended not to hear. I kept walking, but my hands shook a little. I am not sure why their words bothered me so much. Maybe it was not their words. Maybe it was the way they looked at me. Like I was invisible, I sat down in the reading room and opened a magazine. I stared at the page, but I did not really read. My mind kept going back to their voices, their eyes. I looked at my hands. My skin is thinner now. My nails are shorter than they used to be. I wear flat shoes and cardigans. I do not wear lipstick anymore. I do not wear much of anything that feels bold. I asked myself, when did I start disappearing? That night, Amanda called. She was tired. I could hear it in her voice. She told me Jacob was doing well in school but was spending too much time on the computer. I offered to take him for the weekend. She paused, just for a moment. Then she said, "Are you sure, Mom? I mean, you do not have to. He gets bored at your place." I smiled, but my heart sank a little. "I am sure," I said. After we hung up, I sat on the sofa with a blanket wrapped around my legs. I watched the fireplace flicker. The room felt too quiet. Even the cat was asleep. I looked around my living room, the framed pictures, the old records, the books, the candles. Everything was still in its place. But something inside me was not. I remembered a time when people came to me for advice, when artists waited outside my office for a chance to sing their hearts out, when I decided which voice was strong enough for the world to hear. Now, my own voice felt like a whisper. The next day, Jacob arrived. He dropped his backpack near the door and headed straight to the kitchen. "Do you have any snacks?" he asked. I gave him cookies and juice. He took them without saying thank you. I wanted to say something, to remind him about manners, but I stopped myself. I did not want to be the nagging grandma. Later, as we sat on the couch watching something, loud and flashing on the screen, he turned to me and said, "You do not know anything about music, Grandma. You are too old for that stuff." I felt something twist inside my chest. I smiled, but my heart did not. He laughed and looked back at the screen. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say, "You have no idea who I used to be." But instead, I stayed, silent. That night, I stood in front of the mirror. I looked into my own eyes. I whispered, "What happened to you, Margaret?" I could feel something changing. The morning after Jacob's visit, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold. I looked out the window at the garden. The roses had started to bloom. They were soft and pink, just like they were every spring. But even the beauty of the flowers could not settle my mind. I felt unsettled, confused, a little lost. Why did Jacob's words hurt so much? Why did Amanda hesitate when I offered to help? Why did those girls in the library make me feel so small? I had lived through so much in my life: heartbreak, failure, long nights filled with worry. I had also known great joy. I had once stood in rooms filled with music and power. I had helped voices rise. I had helped people become stars. But now, in this quiet house, I felt like I did not belong anywhere. Not in Jacob's fast, digital world. Not in Amanda's busy, grown-up life. And not in my own memories either. Because those memories were starting to feel like someone else's. I picked up an old photo from the bookshelf. It was a picture of me and Thomas, my late husband. We were standing outside a music studio in Los Angeles, both of us smiling like we had already won the world. I was wearing a red scarf and sunglasses. My hair was long. My eyes were fierce. I stared at that woman. I missed her. Where did she go? I walked to the piano in the corner of the living room. I had not touched it in months. I used to play every morning. Just a few soft chords to wake the soul. But lately, I had been too tired, or maybe too afraid. I sat down on the bench. I placed my fingers on the keys. They felt cold. I played a G major chord, then C, then F. Slowly, like my hands were remembering something my heart had forgotten. The sound filled the room. Not perfectly, not powerfully, but it was enough to make my chest feel warm. Suddenly, I felt tears on my cheeks. I was not sure why I was crying. Maybe it was sadness. Or maybe it was relief, I whispered. What am I doing with my life? And the silence that followed felt like an answer. I stood up and walked outside. I needed air. The breeze touched my face like a kind hand. The sky was soft with clouds. I walked down the street, past the houses, past the school, past the place where the music shop used to be, the one that sold vinyl and always played jazz in the afternoons. It was a coffee shop now, and the jazz was gone. Everything had changed, and I had let it. When I returned home, I sat on the porch for a long time. I kept thinking about Jacob's words. You do not know anything about music. He was wrong. But maybe I was the one who had let him believe it, and that thought stayed with me as the sun disappeared behind the trees. A few days later, I got a phone call I was not expecting. Margaret, it is David. I froze. David Carter. That name had not entered my life in over 20 years. He was one of the first artists I ever worked with. A singer with a velvet voice, and a temper like wildfire. We had built something powerful together. Music that touched people, records that sold out in weeks. But things ended badly. Fame does not always make people better. I had not spoken to him since the label closed, since I walked away from that world. David, I said slowly, it has been a long time. I know, he replied. Too long. I found your number through an old friend. I hope that is all right. I was quiet. I wanted to say thank you, he continued, for everything you did for me. I do not think I ever said it back then. His voice was softer than I remembered, gentler, as if life had taught him how to listen. We spoke for a few minutes. I told him about Amanda, about Jacob. I did not mention the loneliness. I did not mention the pain. He told me he was living in Seattle now, still writing music. Quiet songs for small rooms, he said. I do not care about being famous anymore. I just want it to feel real. Then he paused. Margaret, do you ever miss it? That question felt heavy. I let it sit between us for a few seconds. Yes, I said. More than I let myself admit. Me too, he whispered. He asked if we could meet. Just for coffee, he said. I would like to see you. Maybe talk about the old days. Maybe talk about what we both still carry. I wanted to say yes. I really did. But something inside me hesitated. Could I trust him? He had hurt me before. Broken contracts. raised his voice in front of strangers, thrown away chances that I worked so hard to give him. But he also made music that moved me to tears. He had once called me the only person who truly believed in his voice, and there was a time, a short, wild time, when I thought I might have loved him. I sat with my hand on the phone for a long time after we hung up. The past was knocking on my door, and for the first time in years, I did not know if I should open it. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again. I asked myself, can people really change? And I did not know the answer, but I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that something good could come from my past, that maybe I was not done being the woman I once was. So I wrote his number down on a piece of paper, and I waited. I waited to feel brave. It was Saturday morning when I finally called Elaine. Elaine and I had been friends for almost 30 years. We met during my second year at the label. She was a studio manager back then, sharp, strong, and fiercely loyal. She had seen me through some of my best and worst years. When I told her about David calling me, she was silent for a few seconds. Then she said, "Be careful." Her voice was low, almost like a whisper. "I know," I replied. "But he sounded different." Elaine sighed. "They always sound different after time has softened the story." I felt her words like a cold breeze. "He says he just wants to talk," I added. "Maybe remember the good times." "Margaret," she said. "He nearly ruined you." That stung, but it was true. I remembered the night David disappeared before a major performance. I had to stand in front of a full crowd and lie for him. I remembered the money we lost, the press, the shame. I remembered sitting in my office, holding my head in my hands, wondering how I had let things fall apart. But that was a long time ago, I said quietly. "People change." "Some do," Elaine replied. "Some just change the way they talk to get back in." I knew she meant well. She always had. But something inside me wanted to believe David had grown. His voice had felt sincere. There was no anger, no pride, just warmth and memory. Still, Elaine's words stayed with me. That evening, Amanda called. I told her that someone from my old life had reached out. She asked who. When I said David's name, she laughed in disbelief. "Are you serious, Mom? That man caused you so much trouble." She was not wrong either. "But maybe I need to face the past," I said. "Maybe it is time." Amanda paused. Then she said something that stayed with me long after the call ended. "Just do not let your loneliness make you forget who he used to be." Loneliness. That word echoed in my chest. Was that what I was feeling? Was I opening the door to the past because I missed being seen? That night, I sat outside under the stars with a blanket around my shoulders. The wind was cool. The sky was clear. The world felt quiet and far away. I thought about the music we made, the nights we spent in the studio, the way David used to close his eyes when he sang a line that mattered. And I also thought about the shouting, the broken promises, the way I had to clean up the mess alone. I closed my eyes, and I heard it again. Elaine's voice, Amanda's voice, a warning, soft but certain, a reminder that some doors do not need to be opened again. But part of me, the part that still believed in music, in people, in second chances, was not ready to let go. Not yet. For the next few days, I told myself I was fine. I stayed busy. I cleaned the pantry. I went to the market. I even baked a lemon pie, though I did not really want any. I smiled at the neighbors. I watered the roses. I listened to an old jazz record while folding laundry. But every quiet moment held a question I did not want to answer. What am I doing? I kept the paper with David's number in the top drawer of my desk. Every time I passed it, I felt something in my chest. A little flutter. A little fear. I heard Amanda's voice in my head. Do not let your loneliness make you forget who he used to be. I heard Elaine's warning. Some just change the way they talk to get back in. But I pushed those voices away. I told myself they were overreacting, that they did not know what I knew, that people can change. I remembered the way David had said, "Thank you." I remembered how his voice trembled when he said, "Me too." Those moments felt real, so I ignored the doubts. I told myself I deserved to reconnect with someone from that part of my life, someone who knew the woman I used to be, someone who had seen me when I still felt powerful, when my days were filled with music and meaning. One evening, I stood at my closet and pulled out an old box from the top shelf. Inside were photographs, vinyl sleeves, backstage passes. I found a photo of David and me, standing side by side. I was smiling wide. He had his arm around my shoulder, his guitar slung across his back. We looked fearless. I placed the photo on the desk next to the phone. I stared at it for a long time. I ignored the tightness in my stomach. I ignored the part of me that wanted to cry. I ignored the memory of how that story had ended. Instead, I focused on what could be. What if this time he was telling the truth? What if I said yes? What if this led to something beautiful? A song, a friendship, a piece of myself I thought I had lost. So I picked up the phone. I dialed. He answered. And just like that, I walked past every warning. I smiled through the fear. Told myself, everything will be fine, even though my heart knew it might not be. We met at a small cafe near the edge of town. It was quiet, the kind of place where people read books in silence, and the music was soft enough to think. I chose the table near the window. I wanted the light. I wanted to see his face clearly. David arrived 5 minutes late, just like always. But when he walked in, I barely recognized him. His hair was thinner. His shoulders had a slight curve I did not remember. He walked slower, but his eyes, those warm, dark eyes, they were still. The same when he saw me, he smiled. Not a wide, easy smile, but a small, careful one, like he was asking permission to be there. "Margaret," he said gently. "You look the same." I laughed, but only a little. "You look different." We sat down. The waitress brought coffee. I added milk and sugar. He drank his black, just like always. We talked about nothing at first. The weather, traffic, music today versus music back then. But as the words filled the space between us, I noticed something. The way he looked at me like he was searching for someone he used to know, like he wanted to see if I still carried that fire inside me, like he missed the version of me who never hesitated, never doubted, never flinched. And I looked at him with questions I was too afraid to ask. I watched his hands as he spoke. They used to fly with passion when he talked about music. Now they moved slowly, with thought. His voice was lower, softer, almost humble. But was it real, or was it an act? At one point, he reached across the table and touched my hand. Just briefly. His fingers were warm. "I was not kind to you back then," he said. I held my breath. I was young, stupid, so sure of myself. I thought I did not need anyone. I was wrong. You gave me everything, Margaret, and I gave you chaos. I looked down at our hands. Then I pulled mine back gently. "I survived," I said. "I built a life." He nodded. "I can see that." But then, there it was again. That look. That deep, slow gaze that made me feel like I was something rare. Something he wanted. Something he had lost and hoped to win back. It stirred something in me. Something I did not want to admit. Not to him. Not even to myself. Because part of me liked being looked at like that again. Part of me missed it, and that scared me more than anything. We met again the next week. Same cafe, same table, same soft music in the background. This time he brought a small notebook. Inside were lyrics, scribbled lines, half songs, written in his neat, slanted handwriting. "I have been writing again," he said, "since I heard your voice." I felt the warmth in his words, but also the weight. He was not just here for coffee. He was not just here to say sorry. He wanted something. I listened as he read a few lines out loud. They were beautiful, in a quiet, aching way. They sounded like someone who had seen life bend and break. But the music was not what stayed with me. It was the way he looked at me again, like I was the answer to something he could not fix on his own. After a while, I could not take it anymore. I put down my cup. "David," I said, "why are you really here?" He blinked. "I told you. I wanted to reconnect, to say thank you." I held his gaze. "And?" He hesitated, just for a second. Then he smiled, soft, tired, and not entirely honest. "I just missed you." That was not enough. I leaned forward. My voice did not rise, but it deepened. "I need to know the truth. All of it." He looked away, out the window. The silence stretched between us. Then he said it. "I have been trying to start something again. A new label. Just local talent. Nothing big. I want to do it right this time. Clean. Simple." He looked back at me. "I need someone who knows how to build. Someone who knows how to guide without controlling. Someone like you." There it was. The truth. He wanted me to help him. He wanted me to go back to a world I had closed the door on. I sat back in my chair. My hands were still. But inside, I was shaking. "Why now?" I asked. "Because I cannot do it without you," he said, "and because I do not want to." It should have felt flattering, but it felt like pressure. It felt like a test, and most of all, it felt like a second chance, wrapped inside a risk I was not sure I was ready to take. I nodded slowly, but I did not give him an answer. Not yet. Because even though my heart wanted to believe him, my mind still remembered what it had cost me the first time. The days after our meeting passed in a blur. I went through the motions of my routine. I went to the grocery store, fed the dog, answered emails. I even picked up my knitting, something I had not done in months. My hands worked slowly, methodically, as I tried to calm the storm inside me. but I could not escape it. David's words echoed in my mind. I cannot do it without you. I need someone like you. And then there was the way he looked at me, the way he spoke, so carefully, so vulnerably. It was as though he believed I was the only person who could help him get it right this time. But what if he was wrong? What if I was wrong? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, a face I once knew so well. I saw the man who had walked away from everything I had built, leaving me to pick up the pieces. And now, he was back, asking for help, asking for a second chance. I knew I should have ignored him. I knew I should have let him stay in the past where he belonged. But something about him, something about the way he had looked at me that day, kept pulling me back in. I tried to distract myself. I went for long walks. I even called my sister to talk about old family memories. But every conversation seemed to circle back to him. I thought about Amanda's words. Do not let your loneliness make you forget who he used to be. I thought about Elaine's warning. Some just change the way they talk to get back in. But all I could hear was his voice. I need you. I cannot do it without you. I was torn. There was a part of me that wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this was an opportunity for something new, for redemption, maybe, for both of us. But another part of me was afraid of what it would cost to open that door again, afraid of the hurt I had buried deep within myself. I found myself sitting alone one evening, staring at the empty chair across from me, the chair where he had sat just days before. What would happen if I let him back in? Would I be making the same mistakes? Would I be letting my heart run ahead of my head again? I shook my head, trying to clear the thoughts that were swirling faster and faster. But they would not stop. I could not stop thinking about him, about what he wanted, about what I wanted, and most of all, I could not stop wondering if it was too late to walk away. The rain began to fall gently on the window pane. It was one of those nights when the world outside seemed to blur into the dark. The house was still, save for the soft tick of the clock on the wall. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, my thoughts spinning in circles. I had not told anyone yet. Not Amanda, not Elaine, not anyone. I had not told anyone that I was considering it, that I was thinking about going back. There was a pain inside me, quiet but persistent, like the rain against the window, a deep ache I could not explain. It was not the kind of pain that made you cry out loud. It was the kind that settled in your chest, heavy and unnoticed until it became unbearable. I thought about the years I had spent alone. The years I had spent rebuilding my life piece by piece. I had created something new, something strong, something I could stand on, even when the storms came. And now, David wanted me to undo it all. But I could not forget the way he looked at me. The way his eyes had softened when he spoke about the past. He wanted me to believe him. He wanted me to trust that this time it would be different. But deep down, I knew better. I had learned the hard way that trust, once broken, was not so easy to rebuild. That some things could never go back to the way they were. I sighed and wiped my eyes, feeling the tears that had gathered, threatening to fall. I had not cried about David in so long, but tonight I could not hold it in any longer. The tears came, quiet and slow. They did not come with loud sobs or great pain. They came like the rain, steady, soft, almost peaceful. They fell because I needed to let them. Because I needed to release the weight that had been pressing down on me. I thought about the moments I had spent with David. The music, the laughter, the warmth. I thought about the promises he had made and the dreams we had shared. And then I thought about the lies, the brokenness, the way he had walked away when I needed him most. The pain was not just from the past. It was from the part of me that had loved him, that still wanted to believe he could be something more than the man he had been. I wiped my face and stood up. The house felt cold now, empty. I walked over to the window and looked out into the dark. The rain had stopped, and the sky was beginning to clear. But there was still a heaviness in the air, a weight I could not shake. I did not know what to do next. I did not know if I should answer David's call or walk away for good. But I knew one thing. The pain I felt now was mine to carry, and only I could decide when I was ready to let it go. I had spent so many days running in circles, trying to make sense of what David wanted, what I wanted, and what was really best for me. But I knew I could not live like this anymore, torn between two worlds, questioning every decision, unsure of who I was becoming. I needed an answer. I needed to stop this constant wondering. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening. I was standing in the kitchen, stirring soup, when the familiar name flashed on the screen. David. I took a deep breath and answered. Margaret, he said, his voice soft. I was thinking about you. Of course he was. He had been thinking about me for days, weeks, maybe even longer. He had never stopped thinking about me, and I knew it. I've been thinking about you too, I said, my voice steady, but my heart thudding in my chest. I had promised myself I would be strong, that I would face this head on. But as I spoke, I could feel the old pull, the pull of who we were together, the pull of the memories that lingered like unfinished songs. There was a long pause before he spoke again. I need you, Margaret. I know I messed up before. I know. I hurt you. But I'm asking you, please. Just consider it. Consider coming back. Not for me. Not for anyone else. But for you. For what we could still create. I closed my eyes, letting his words sink in. I had lived so much of my life feeling like I was doing it alone. Like I had to build everything by myself, brick by brick. I had gotten used to it. I had accepted it. But hearing him say those words, hearing him beg me to consider it, it made my chest tighten. It made me want to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have the life I once dreamed of. Maybe I could have something beautiful again. But I had to be honest with myself. I had to ask the hard question. I need to know why, I said, my voice low but clear. Why do you want this now? Why do you want me now? After everything that happened. There was another pause. Then he sighed deeply. Because I was wrong, Margaret. I was a fool. I let everything slip through my fingers. But I can't let it slip again. His words hung in the air like a plea. I don't know if I can believe you, I whispered, the doubt in my voice impossible to hide. I understand, he said. I know I have to prove it. I know I cannot just expect you to trust me again, but I am here, Margaret, and I will wait, as long as it takes." I stood there for a moment, listening to the silence between us. His offer was tempting. It was what I had dreamed of all those years ago, the second chance, the new beginning. But now it felt different. Now I was not the woman I had been when we first met. I had changed. I had built a life for myself, and I had to ask myself the most important question of all. What did I need? What did I want? The truth was, I had no answer yet. I needed time. I needed space. I needed to stop running in circles. "I cannot give you an answer right now," I said quietly. "I need to think." He did not say anything at first, but when he spoke, his voice was filled with understanding. "Take your time," he said. "I'll be here when you're ready." I hung up the phone, the weight of his words still heavy in my chest. I did not know what I would decide. I did not know where this would lead. But one thing was clear. I could not stay in this uncertain space forever. I needed an answer. But most of all, I needed to find the strength to give it to myself. The days stretched on. The space I had created for myself felt quieter, emptier. But the peace was not real. Not yet. Not until I made a decision. The call with David had been a turning point. I could feel the weight of his words in my mind, in my heart. I could feel the pull of the past and the weight of what it might cost to go back. But I needed to understand what it all meant. I needed to understand what I truly wanted, and more importantly, what I was afraid of. I woke up early, one morning, unable to sleep. The night had been restless, my mind racing in all directions. I made my coffee, sat by the window, and watched the world wake up. The sunlight spilled into the room, but it did nothing to lift the heaviness in my chest. I closed my eyes and let the silence fill the space, and in that silence, I finally understood. I understood the fear that had kept me from making a choice, the fear that had kept me stuck in the past, frozen in a place I had outgrown. I had been afraid to admit the truth to myself. I was still holding on to what I used to be, to what I used to have, to the dream of what David and I could have been. But that dream was not my reality anymore. It was a memory, and memories could not be lived again. The woman I was now was someone different, stronger, wiser, more complete than I had been before. I had learned to build my own life without waiting for someone else to do it with me, and I realized that, no matter how much I wanted to believe David's words, no matter how much I longed for the connection we had once shared, I could not go back to who I was. I had become someone else, someone who did not need to rely on the past to feel whole. The truth was painful, but it was also freeing. I had spent so much of my life giving pieces of myself away. I had given them to David. I had given them to others. I had given them to the idea of what I thought I should be. But now, I understood. I was enough. I had always been enough. The realization hit me like a wave, gentle at first, but then all-encompassing. I had spent too long hiding behind the shadows of what I thought I needed. But now, I could see myself clearly, and I saw the strength that had always been there. I looked out the window, feeling the sun on my face. It was a new day, and I knew, deep in my heart, that it was time to make a choice. I could choose to walk away from the past, from the dreams that were never meant to be. I could choose to move forward with the life I had built, with the person I had become. And that was enough. The decision had come slowly, piece by piece, like a puzzle I had been trying to solve for years. But now, it was clear. I could not keep waiting for something that no longer existed. I could not keep looking back at a life that had slipped away, no matter how hard I tried to hold on to it. David had given me a choice, but it was my choice to make. And after everything, I knew what I had to do. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, looking at myself. I could see the woman I had become, older, wiser, and stronger than the one I had been when I first met David. She was someone who had learned to live on her own terms, someone who no longer needed anyone else's approval to feel complete. Took a deep breath and walked into the kitchen, where I had been avoiding the phone call for days. The phone sat on the counter, quiet and still. I picked it up, my hand steady. My heart was racing, but there was no hesitation now. I dialed David's number. It rang twice before he picked up. "Margaret," he said, his voice soft, almost hopeful. "I've been waiting for your call." I swallowed hard. There was a lump in my throat, but I knew this moment was inevitable. "I know you have," I said, my voice firm but kind. "And I've been thinking, but I've made my decision." There was a long pause, and for a moment I could hear the silence between us. It was as though the entire world was holding its breath. "What do you mean?" he asked, the vulnerability in his voice undeniable. "I mean that I can't go back, David," I said quietly. "I can't keep holding on to something that is no longer there. I've spent too much time looking at the past, and it's time for me to walk away." His silence spoke volumes. I could feel the weight of his disappointment, his confusion, but I also knew he understood. "I understand," he said after a long moment. I never thought you would say that." "I know," I replied. "I never thought I would either. But I've changed, and I can't go back to who I was before. I have to move forward, even if that means doing it alone." I heard a soft sigh on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have seen this coming." I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. I had spent so much time hoping for something that wasn't coming. Now, I was letting it go. "I'm not sorry," I said softly. "I'm not sorry for what we had, but I can't keep pretending. It's time for me to live the life I've built, without looking back." There was another long pause before he spoke again. "I wish you the best, Margaret," he said quietly. "I always will." I held the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of the moment. It felt like a door closing, but also like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I had made the choice I had needed to make, and now I was free. "I wish you the best too, David," I said, before ending the call. The silence in the room was deafening, but somehow it was peaceful. It was the kind of silence that comes after a storm, when the world is still and everything feels right again. I had walked away, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with myself. I thought that walking away would be the end of it. I thought that once I made the decision to leave the past behind, the weight of it would disappear, like fog lifting after a storm. But as I sat in the quiet of my home, with the phone call over, and the silence pressing in, I realized that the pain did not leave so easily. It stayed with me, lingering in the corners of my mind, in the spaces between my breaths. The decision to let go had been necessary, but it was not the simple fix I had imagined. The ache was there, soft but constant, like a scar that never fully healed. I could feel it every time I walked into a room we had shared, every time I passed, the places where we used to laugh, where we used to dream. I could still see his face in my mind, hear his voice in the quiet of the house. It was as if I had made a choice to start over, but the past refused to let go of me. I tried to fill the days with things to distract myself. I met with friends. I worked on my new projects. I even spent time going through old photos, sorting through memories that I had not looked at in years. But every time I came back to my thoughts, the pain was still there. It was not the sharp pain of betrayal, or the stinging loss of something I had never truly had. It was the slow, deep ache of a love that had once been real, now lost to time, and that hurt. I walked to the window, looking out at the world outside. The rain had returned, softly falling, a familiar rhythm. It was the kind of rain that reminded me of the past, of the way things used to be, of the life I thought I would have. I thought about David, about all the things we never said, all the things we never finished. There had been so much left unsaid between us, and I could not stop wondering if there had been a way to fix it. But I knew deep down that the past could not be rewritten. No matter how much I wished for it, no matter how many times I looked back, the truth was that I had already made the only choice I could make. Still, the pain stayed. It stayed in the quiet moments, in the spaces where I was alone with my thoughts. It stayed in the empty room, in the absence of his presence. But I also knew that pain was a part of healing. It was a part of letting go. And although it hurt, I had to trust that it would not last forever. One day, it would fade. And when it did, I would be stronger. I would be freer. I would be the woman I was meant to be, without the weight of the past holding me down. But for now, I let myself feel it. The pain was mine to carry, and I would carry it until I was ready to let it go. The days had started to blur together, and while I was moving forward, I could not help but look back. It was as though the past had woven itself into the fabric of who I was, and no matter how much I wanted to pull away from it, it still held pieces of me. I missed the past, more than I cared to admit. I missed the version of myself who had laughed easily, who had looked at the world with bright eyes and an open heart. I missed the days when I believed in forever, when love seemed like an endless promise, and when the future felt like an adventure I was ready to embrace with anyone by my side. But that woman was gone now, and it hurt more than I expected. The past had been simpler, in a way. We had been so young then, full of hopes and dreams. I remembered the long walks David and I had taken, talking about the future, not knowing that we would drift apart like we did. I missed those walks, those conversations where everything seemed possible. I missed how easy it had been to talk to him, how his smile had made everything feel lighter. There had been so many small moments that now felt like distant memories, like the light touch of his hand on mine, or the way he'd look at me like I was the only person in the room. But it was not just him that I missed. I missed the dream we had built together, the dream that had felt so real, so tangible at the time. I missed the idea of us, of who we could have been. I missed the way our lives had seemed intertwined, as if nothing could tear us apart. But now, all of that was lost. The truth was, I missed the life we thought we were going to have. I missed the hope that we would grow old together, side by side, sharing the years ahead with no more doubts, no more second guesses. But I also knew that life does not always follow the path we expect, and the future I thought I would have was not the one I was living now. The rain began to fall again, softly, tapping against the window. I sat by the glass, watching the drops race down the pane, lost in thought. I let my mind wander back to those days, to those moments when I was not so afraid of losing what I loved. I let myself feel the longing, the ache of those memories, the sweet nostalgia that came with knowing that the past was behind me, no matter how hard I tried to hold on to it. I was not the same woman I had been then. I had changed, and in many ways, I was stronger for it. But the past was a part of me, and no matter how far I moved forward, it would always be there. I missed it. And for a moment, I let myself feel that loss. I let myself miss the person I used to be, and the dreams that seemed so possible when I was younger. But after that moment, I knew I had to let it go, because I could not live in the past. I had to embrace the present and the future that was waiting for me. The past would always be a part of me, but it could not define me anymore. It was late afternoon when I decided to pick up the phone. The world outside had been gray all day, the sky heavy with the promise of more rain. I sat in the quiet of my living room, wrapped in a blanket, feeling the weight of my thoughts pressing down on me. I had been avoiding this conversation for a while. I was used to handling things on my own, burying my emotions until I could make sense of them. But today, something inside me told me that I could not do it alone any longer. I called Lucy. Lucy had been my friend for years. We had shared so much, together. Laughter, tears, and all the little moments in between. She knew me better than almost anyone else, and I trusted her with a part of myself I did not easily share with others. The phone rang twice before she answered. Margaret. Hey, how are you doing? Lucy's voice was warm, comforting, and instantly familiar. I am okay, I replied, though I was not sure I believed it myself. Actually, no, I am not okay. I heard her pause for a moment, probably sensing the change in my tone. What is going on? She asked gently. I let out a sigh and leaned back against the couch, the weight of the conversation already heavy on my chest. It is just everything. I thought I was moving on. I thought I had made peace with it all, but it is harder than I expected. Lucy's voice softened. I know. You have been through a lot, Margaret. I can only imagine what it feels like to make such a big change, to let go of a piece of your life that you thought was permanent. I miss him, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I miss everything about the past, even if I know I should let it go. I miss the way things used to be. I miss how simple everything felt. But it is not just that. I miss the person I used to be too. I feel like I have lost so much of myself in the process. I understand, Lucy said. Change is hard, but you cannot look at this as losing yourself. You are not losing anything. You are just evolving. The woman you are now is different from the woman you were before, but that does not mean she is any less of who you are." I closed my eyes, the warmth of her words slowly sinking in. "I do not feel like I have evolved. I feel like I am stuck, like I am still holding on to something I cannot change." "You are not stuck," Lucy said firmly. "You are just figuring it out. And you do not have to do it alone." The tears I had been holding back finally fell. They were quiet tears, ones that did not seem to have a clear source but had been building up for weeks. "I thought I could handle it, Lucy. I thought I could be strong. But sometimes the weight of it all is just too much." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Lucy spoke again, her voice steady but filled with compassion. "It is okay to feel that way. It is okay to be sad, to miss the past. But you are not the same person you were. You are stronger now, and you are allowed to feel the pain, but you are also allowed to heal." I nodded even though she could not see me. Her words were like a balm for my weary heart. I had been so focused on trying to fix everything on my own that I had forgotten how important it was to lean on the people who cared about me. "Thank you," I whispered. I really needed to hear that. "Anytime," Lucy replied, her voice filled with reassurance. "You are not alone in this, Margaret, and no matter what happens, you are enough. I know that, and I want you to know that too." We sat in silence for a moment, letting the quiet conversation settle between us. The rain outside had grown heavier, and I could hear the soft patter against the window. But for the first time, in days, I did not feel so alone. "I will be okay, won't I?" I asked, my voice small but hopeful. Lucy's response was soft, but it carried the weight of all the years we had spent together. "Yes, you will be. It might take time, but you will find your way. You always do." And in that moment, I believed her. The moment had come, and yet I had no words left to say. I had spent weeks preparing for this. It was as though I had known it was inevitable, but no amount of preparation could have made it easier. Saying goodbye was never simple, no matter how much time you had to get ready for it. I stood at the front door of the house, the familiar creaking of the wood beneath my feet, reminding me of the countless times I had crossed this threshold. But today, it felt different. Today I was not stepping into the house I had known for so long. Today, I was leaving something behind. I had packed my bags earlier, carefully folding my clothes as if to hold on to the last bit of normalcy. Each item I placed in the suitcase seemed to carry a memory with it, a piece of my life I was taking, with me, and a piece I was leaving behind. I had reached the moment where there was nothing more to say, no more explanations to give. I had tried to make sense of it all, tried to understand why things had turned out the way they had. But some things, I realized, would never make sense. Some things were simply out of my hands. David had called earlier that morning asking if we could talk one last time. He had said that he needed closure, that he needed to know why. But I could not give him that. Not anymore. The answers were no longer mine to give. I stood there, facing the door, my hand on the knob. The sun was beginning to set outside, casting a soft golden glow across the room. It felt as though time had slowed down, as though the entire world was waiting for me to take this final step. And then, just as I had done countless times before, I turned the knob and stepped outside. The air was cooler than I expected, the scent of rain still lingering in the breeze. I took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill my lungs. There was something calming about it, something that made me feel like I was taking control of my own life again. I did not look back. There was no need. I had made my decision, and I knew it was the right one. I had to walk away. I had to say goodbye to the past and everything that came with it. It was not easy, and it would never be. But it was the only way forward. I had spent so many years trying to hold on, trying to fix something that was broken beyond repair. But now, I understood that some things are not meant to be fixed. Some things are meant to be released, to be set free. I walked down the path, my suitcase rolling quietly behind me, and I did not look back. I had said goodbye, not just to David, but to the life we had shared. And I was ready to move on, ready to find my own way again. The road ahead was uncertain, and I knew it would not always be easy. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of clarity that I had not felt in years. I had let go, and in doing so, I had set myself free. The house felt different now. It was quiet, so quiet that it almost seemed like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. I had always thought that the silence would be the hardest part of being alone. But now that I was here, in this empty space, I realized it was not the silence that was hard to bear. It was the emptiness. The space that David and I had once filled with laughter and conversations, with shared moments and memories, now felt like a hollow echo of what had been. I had never truly understood how much noise we make in a relationship. The sound of someone else's presence, the little hums of their life intertwining with yours, the way two people can share a space and make it feel alive, even when they are not speaking. But now, as I sat in this empty house, I realized how much of that had been taken away. The noise had stopped, and all that was left was the silence. Had expected to feel free, to feel the weight of the past lifting off my shoulders. And in many ways, I did. There was a strange kind of freedom in knowing that I no longer had to answer to anyone, no longer had to navigate the complexities of a relationship that had become too painful. But in that freedom, there was also a certain loneliness. I had never truly allowed myself to sit with loneliness before. I had always filled the silence with distractions, with people, with the constant hum of activity. But now, for the first time in years, I was completely alone. It was a different kind of loneliness than I had felt before. It was not the loneliness of being abandoned or forgotten. It was the loneliness that came from having to confront the truth of who I was, without the comfort of another person to share the journey with. It was the loneliness of learning to be enough for myself, even when it felt like there was so much missing. I sat in the living room, staring at the empty chair where David used to sit. It was hard to imagine him there now. The space felt so vacant, and yet his absence was so present. I could not help but think about how everything had changed. The woman I was before, the woman who had believed that love could fix everything, was gone. The woman I was now was different. Stronger, yes, but also more fragile in some ways. I had learned that love was not always enough. I had learned that sometimes, even when you love someone deeply, it is not enough to keep the relationship alive. And that was one of the hardest truths to accept. I thought about the years we had spent together, the memories we had created, the dreams we had shared. It felt like a lifetime ago. The love I had for David was still there, buried deep inside me. But I also knew that love alone could not heal the wounds we had inflicted on each other. I had tried so hard to make things work. But sometimes, trying was not enough. I looked around the room, taking in the stillness, the silence that filled the space. The empty chair, the quiet walls. They felt like a reflection of the journey I had just begun. It was a journey of self-discovery, of learning who I was without the weight of the past holding me down. It was a journey of accepting that being alone did not mean being incomplete. I had always thought that I needed someone else to complete me. But now, I was beginning to realize that I was enough on my own. I stood up, walking slowly toward the window. Outside, the world seemed unchanged. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, the birds flew across the sky, and the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over everything. The world was moving on, just as I was, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. I was alone now, but I was not lost. I was free. I had spent so many years defining myself by the roles I played in other people's lives. I had been a daughter, a wife, a mother. I had been someone's partner, someone's friend, always trying to fit into the boxes that were expected of me. And for a long time, I believed that my worth was tied to those roles. I believed that as long as I was needed by others, I was enough. But now, standing in the quiet of my home, I understood something profound. I was not those roles. I was not just a wife, or a mother, or a daughter. I was Margaret, a woman who had lived through pain, love, loss, and triumph. A woman who had the strength to walk away when the life she had built no longer served her. I was not the same person I had been when I walked into this house all those years ago. The woman I was now had learned to stand on her own 2 feet. She had learned that she did not need someone else to complete her. She was complete on her own, in her own right, with her own dreams and her own desires. The change had been slow, almost imperceptible at times, but it was real, and it was mine. I had thought that I would be lost without David, that I would never find my way again. I had convinced myself that the woman I was without him would be weak, broken, incomplete. But I was beginning to see that she was none of those things. She was strong. She was capable. And she was enough. I thought back to all the moments I had spent feeling unsure of myself, wondering if I could ever be the person I needed to be. There had been so many times when I had doubted myself, when I had second-guessed every decision I made. But I had faced those doubts, and I had learned to trust myself. I was learning to trust the woman I had become. In the silence of my home, I felt a quiet power growing inside me. It was the power of self-acceptance, the power of knowing that I was worthy, not because of what I could give to others, but because of who I was at my core. The woman I was now was someone who could embrace change, who could stand up for herself, who could walk away when things were no longer right. She was someone who knew that the road ahead might not be easy, but she was ready for it. She had nothing left to prove to anyone. I was beginning to see that the pain I had endured had shaped me into someone different, someone better. It had forced me to look inside myself, to confront the things I had hidden away for so long. It had made me realize that I did not need anyone else's approval to be happy, to be fulfilled. The woman I was now was a woman who had finally learned to love herself, even with all her flaws, even with all her scars. She had learned to appreciate her own worth, to honor her own strength, and that was the greatest gift I could give myself. I was not the same as I had been before. I was no longer the woman who had relied on others to define her. I was not the woman who had needed approval or validation to feel whole. I was Margaret, and I was enough. For so long, I had been waiting for a sign that I was on the right path, that everything I was going through had a purpose. I had looked for this sign in the people around me, in the advice they gave, in the way they spoke. I had looked for it in my own heart, hoping that somewhere deep inside I would find the strength to carry on. But I had never expected that the light I had been searching for would come in the smallest of moments. It was a quiet afternoon, just like any other. The sun was starting to set, casting a soft glow across the living room. I had been sitting there for hours, thinking about all that had happened, about David, about the changes I had gone through, about everything I had lost and everything I had gained. My mind was a jumble of thoughts, and yet, at that moment, there was a stillness that I could not quite explain. I had stopped waiting for something big to happen, for some grand gesture or sign that would prove everything would be okay. I had learned that life did not work like that. It did not always offer answers in the way we wanted or expected. Sometimes life simply gave us moments, small moments, that held the power to change everything. I was sitting by the window, watching the sky turn from gold to pink, when I saw a figure in the distance. It was my granddaughter, Lily, running down the path that led to my house. She was laughing, her face full of joy and energy. Something about that sight, the pure joy in her face, made something stir deep within me. I had always loved Lily, but in that moment, it was as though I was seeing her with new eyes. She was the future, a future that was still full of possibility. Her laughter was a reminder that life was not all about the past, not all about the mistakes I had made or the people I had lost. It was about the moments that were still to come, the small lights in the darkness that could guide us forward. Lily reached the door, and without hesitation, she flung it open and ran inside. She jumped into my lap, hugging me tightly. Her small arms wrapped around me, and for a moment, it felt like everything was as it should be. I smiled, my heart lightening. "You look happy," I said softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. Lily pulled away just enough to look up at me, her eyes shining. "Grandma, I made you something. Look!" She reached into her bag and pulled out a small drawing. It was a picture of me, sitting by the window with the sun shining through. It was simple, but in that moment, it felt like a gift. "Thank you, Lily," I whispered, holding the picture close to my heart. It was not just a drawing, it was a symbol of something much greater. It was a reminder that love, hope, and light could come from the most unexpected places. Lily had no idea how much that small act of kindness meant to me. She had no idea that in that moment, she had given me something I had been searching for all along. A reason to keep moving forward. A reason to believe that even in the darkest times, there could be light. And it was enough. The small light that I had been waiting for was right here in front of me. It was not in grand gestures or answers to my questions. It was in the simplicity of a child's love, in the quiet moments that filled my heart with warmth. I looked at Lily and smiled, a tear slipping down my cheek. For the first time in so long, I felt a sense of peace. The road ahead was still uncertain, and I knew there would be more struggles to face. But in that moment, I knew that I was not alone. The light, however small, was there, and that was all I needed. After all that had happened, after all the pain and the heartache, I could feel something changing in me. It was subtle at first, almost like a whisper, but it was there, a quiet determination to move forward, to start again. I had been broken, yes, but I was not defeated. I had lost much, but I had also gained something important, the strength to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I had spent so long focusing on what had been taken from me, on the relationships that had fractured and the dreams that had been shattered, but now I was starting to realize that the power to heal was in my hands. It was not about waiting for things to change or hoping for someone else to come back into my life and make everything better. It was about me. It was about taking control of my own future, no matter how uncertain it seemed. It began with small steps. The first thing I did was clear the clutter. The house, which had once been filled with the memories of my life with David, now felt heavy with their presence. Every picture, every old letter, every object that reminded me of the past seemed to carry the weight of all the unresolved emotions I had been carrying for so long. So, I started with the simplest thing I could do. I began to clean. I spent the day sorting through the house, going through old books and trinkets. Some things I kept, things that still held meaning, but many I threw away. It was a physical act of letting go, of releasing the past and making room for the future. It felt symbolic, like I was wiping the slate clean, preparing for something new. As I cleaned, I started to realize that I had been living in a kind of emotional mess for far too long. My life, just like my home, had become cluttered with old hurts, regrets, and fears. But now, I was beginning to clear them away. I was beginning to make space for new memories, new experiences. After the house was tidy, I turned to my own self-care. For so many years, I had put others before myself. I had been so focused on making sure everyone around me was happy, on keeping the peace, that I had neglected my own needs. But now, I was learning to put myself first, not in a selfish way, but in a way that allowed me to be whole again. I started by taking long walks in the park. The fresh air, the sound of the birds, the feel of the sun on my face. It was a reminder that life was still beautiful, that I was still alive, and that I still had so much to offer. I began to eat better, to take care of my body in ways I had neglected for too long. I began to rest, to read, to nurture my own soul. It was not easy. The old habits were hard to break, the patterns I had followed for so many years. There were days when I wanted to give up, when I felt like I would never be able to truly move forward. But I kept going. Every small step, every small decision to take care of myself was a victory. I started to rediscover the things I had once loved. I found myself picking up old hobbies again, things I had put aside when life had become too busy. I took up painting once more, the brushstrokes soothing my mind as I lost myself in the colors and textures. I found solace in books, in the quiet world of fiction that allowed me to escape for a while. I even joined a yoga class, feeling the stretch of my muscles and the peace that came with each breath. I began to laugh again. Not the forced laugh I had given in the past, but real, genuine laughter. I found joy in the small things, In the moments of peace that filled my days, I learned to enjoy my own company, to embrace the quiet, to be at peace with who I was, just as I was. It was not an overnight transformation. It took time, patience, and a willingness to face the pain that had been hiding inside me. But little by little, I began to feel like myself again. The woman who had been lost, who had felt so broken, was slowly being put back together. I did not know what the future held. I did not know if I would ever find love again, or if I would ever have the kind of life I had imagined. But for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that uncertainty. I was okay with the idea of starting fresh, of beginning again, because I knew that no matter what happened, I was strong enough to handle it. I had been through the worst, and I had come out the other side. I had learned that I was capable of so much more than I had ever imagined. The road ahead was still long, but I no longer feared it. I no longer feared being alone. I had learned to be my own strength, my own support, my own source of love, and that was all I needed. The days had grown quieter, but I could feel a change in the air. It was subtle at first. A glance from across the room, a phone call that seemed out of place, an unexpected message. I tried to ignore it at first, convinced that it was my imagination, that I had built up some kind of hope I had no right to have. But then it happened again. David called. It had been months since we last spoke. I had spent so long convincing myself that I was fine, that I did not need him, that I was better off on my own. And yet, when I saw his name on the screen, something inside me stirred. The emotional walls I had spent so long building up felt a little weaker, a little less secure. I stared at the phone, my finger hovering over the screen. I did not want to answer. I had moved on, or at least I had convinced myself that I had. But the old feelings, the ones I thought I had buried, surged up like a tide I could not control. I answered the call. Margaret? His voice sounded different, softer than I remembered. I could almost hear the hesitance in his words, as if he too was unsure of what to say. David, I replied, keeping my voice steady, trying to maintain control. My heart was racing, but I refused to let him hear it. What do you want? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I know it has been a long time, and I know I have no right to ask this of you, but I want to see you. I felt a tightening in my chest, but I said nothing. What was he asking for? Had he truly changed? Could I even believe him after everything that had happened? The years we had spent together, the trust that had been broken, all of it rushed back into my mind, drowning out any chance of clarity. I don't know if I can do that, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can open that door again. David sighed, the sound of it heavy with regret. I understand, but I need you to know that I am sorry. I never meant to hurt you, Margaret. I was selfish, and I made mistakes, but I want to try to fix things. I could hear the desperation in his voice, the pleading that was so unlike the man I had once known. It made me pause, made me think. Was this genuine? Or was he just lonely, seeking comfort in something familiar, something safe, but it was not just about him. It was about me. It was about what I needed. It was about whether or not I was ready to open myself up to someone who had once caused me so much pain. I need more time, I said finally. I am not ready, David. I am still figuring things out. Please, I need space. Another long silence hung between us. I could feel his disappointment radiating through the phone, but I knew I had made the right decision. I had taken so many steps to move forward, to build a new life. I could not allow myself to be pulled backward into something that had broken me once before. Okay, David said quietly. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I am here, and I will be here, if you ever decide. He trailed off, but I knew what he meant. He was leaving the door open. He was giving me a choice that I had to make for myself. I ended the call and sat there in silence for a moment. My hands trembled slightly, the weight of the decision pressing on my chest. It would have been easy to fall back into old patterns, to allow myself to hope again, but I had worked too hard to regain my independence, to rebuild my life, to let someone else come in and undo all the progress I had made. I had learned to love myself, to respect my own boundaries, and I would not let anyone take that from me. I had made my decision. David was not the person I needed him to be anymore, and I was not the same woman I had been when I was with him. I had grown. I had become someone who was strong enough to stand on her own. I could not go back to someone who had broken me, no matter how much he claimed to be sorry. I knew now that my healing was my own responsibility, and no one else could complete me. I had already started again, and I was not going to let anyone take that away from me. It was time to keep moving forward. When I look in the mirror these days, I see a woman I did not recognize months ago. The person staring back at me is someone I have come to understand and appreciate, someone who has weathered storms and survived. I have changed, not in the way I expected or imagined, but in the way that truly matters, from the inside out. I think back to the person I was before all of this, the woman who allowed herself to be defined by the people around her, by the relationships she thought she needed. I was always trying to fix things, always trying to make everyone happy, always thinking that if I could just get things right, I would feel whole. But the truth was, I was never going to be whole until I stopped looking for that completion outside of myself. I had been so focused on the past, on what I had lost, on what could have been, that I failed to see the woman who was standing right in front of me, waiting for the opportunity to grow. It was only when I stopped looking outward, when I began to turn inward and really reflect on who I was, that I started to find the strength I had been searching for. There is a clarity in me now that I never had before. A quiet confidence. I no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. I do not need anyone's approval to know my worth. I am enough. The old version of me would have been desperate to please, to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation at all costs. I would have bent over backward to make sure everyone else was comfortable, even if it meant sacrificing my own happiness. But I do not have the same desperation anymore. I do not feel the need to be liked, to be seen as perfect. I have learned to embrace my flaws, my imperfections. Because they are a part of who I am, I used to feel so much guilt. Guilt over things I had done, things I had said, things I had allowed to happen. I thought I had to carry that guilt with me, that it was my burden to bear. But now, I see it differently. I have made mistakes, yes. I have hurt people, yes. But I am not defined by those mistakes. I have learned from them, and I am better for it. I no longer allow guilt to weigh me down. I forgive myself. The most profound change, however, has been in how I view love. I have always believed that love was something that needed to be earned, that it was something outside of myself, something I had to give to others in order to receive in return. But now, I know that love begins with me. I have learned to love myself in a way I never thought possible. I have learned to care for my own needs, to listen to my own desires, and to respect my own boundaries. Love, I have come to understand, is not about sacrifice or giving everything of yourself to another person. It is about balance. It is about giving and receiving in equal measure. It is about choosing to stand beside someone, not because you need them to complete you, but because you are already whole. I have stopped waiting for someone else to fill the emptiness I once felt. I have stopped seeking validation from others. I no longer need approval or love from anyone to know that I am worthy of both. It has taken time to get here. It has taken time to understand my own value, to let go of the toxic relationships and patterns that held me back. But I have finally arrived at a place where I feel truly free. I do not have all the answers. I do not know what the future holds, but I know that I can face whatever comes next with a sense of peace and strength. When David called, I could feel the old part of me, the part that was unsure, the part that was still healing, wanting to take him back, to try again, to see if maybe, just maybe, things could be different. But the new me, the woman I have become, could see clearly now. I knew that I had to put myself first. I knew that I had to honor the journey I had been on, honor the woman I was becoming, and not let anyone pull me back into a past that no longer served me. The truth is, I am different now, and I am proud of the woman I have become. For the first time in a long time, I can say with absolute certainty that I am choosing myself. This choice, this quiet yet powerful decision, is not one that comes lightly. It is the result of months, no, years, of soul-searching, of tears, of healing, and of letting go. There is something profoundly liberating about saying no to someone or something that no longer fits into the life you are building. It is not a decision made out of anger or resentment, but out of self-love and respect. For too long, I had allowed the needs of others to dictate my choices, to steer the direction of my life. I had shaped myself around the people I loved, around their expectations, their dreams, their desires. But now, I understand that I am allowed to exist for myself. I am allowed to have my own desires. I am allowed to make decisions that put my well-being first. I do not need to justify this choice to anyone. I do not need to explain myself. It is a strange feeling, this newfound sense of freedom. There was a time when I thought that if I chose myself, I would be seen as selfish, uncaring, or distant. I thought that in choosing my own happiness, I would hurt others. But I have learned that in choosing myself, I am not only giving myself the life I deserve, but I am also creating space for the people who truly respect and care for me to come into my life, the people who will see my worth, not as a burden, but as a gift. David's call was a test, an opportunity to see if I would fall back into old habits, to see if I would allow him to return to my life and disrupt the peace I had worked so hard to create. It would have been easy to give in, to give him the chance to try again. But I knew deep down that it was not the path I needed to take. I am not the woman I was when we first met. I am not the woman who would sacrifice herself for the sake of someone else's comfort or approval. I am a woman who knows her worth, who knows that she deserves more than empty promises and broken trust. Choosing myself does not mean that I am turning my back on love. It does not mean that I am closing myself off to connection. It means that I am choosing the right kind of love, a love that comes from within, that comes from a place of strength and mutual respect. I am choosing to love myself first, because only then will I be able to fully give love to others in a way that is healthy and whole. I have realized that I do not need anyone to complete me. I am complete all on my own. I am enough, and I have always been enough. I do not need someone else to validate my existence or make me feel seen. I am seen by me, and that is more than enough. The days ahead are unknown, and that is okay. I no longer feel the need to control every outcome, to predict every turn in the road. I am allowing myself to embrace uncertainty, to live in the moment, to experience life without the fear of what might happen next. I trust myself now. I trust my ability to handle whatever comes my way. I choose myself. And in doing so, I am reclaiming my power. I am choosing to step into the life I have always deserved, a life that is filled with peace, with joy, and with the knowledge that I am enough just as I am. And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful choice of all. The sun rises slowly, casting a soft golden light through the curtains of my bedroom. It feels like a new beginning, like I am waking up to a life I have only begun to fully understand. The days blend together now in a way that feels less overwhelming, less heavy. The past is still there, lingering like a shadow, but it no longer defines me. It no longer controls my thoughts, my emotions, or my future. As I sit on the edge of the bed, I breathe in deeply. The air feels fresh, and for the first time in a long time, I do not feel the weight of regret or uncertainty pressing on my chest. I feel lighter, as if I have shed something that I did not even realize was holding me back. I have finally let go of the things I thought I needed, the things I thought I could not live without. And now, I am free. It is not an easy freedom, though. There is still pain, of course. There are still moments when the memories of what I have lost surface unexpectedly, when I wish for the past, when I feel the ache of missed opportunities. But those moments are fleeting now. They do not consume me the way they once did. They are just part of the process, part of learning how to live in the present and not be enslaved by the past. Today, I decide, is a day for new beginnings. I get out of bed and take a few moments to stretch, to feel my body waking up along with my mind. There is a sense of peace in the rhythm of my movements, in the quiet calm that fills the space around me. I move through my morning routine with intention, savoring each small action as if it were a gift, making the bed, drinking a cup of tea, slipping into clothes that make me feel confident and comfortable. There is no rush today, no pressure to be anywhere, no need to prove anything to anyone. I have learned that it is okay to simply exist, to take each day as it comes, without the burden of expectations. I walk to the window and look out at the world beyond. The trees are still and calm, the sky a soft blue with a few clouds drifting lazily by. It is a beautiful sight, a reminder that there is always beauty to be found, even in the simplest of moments. I smile, a quiet smile, not because everything is perfect, because it is not, but because I am content. I am here, I am breathing, and I am okay. The phone buzzes in my pocket, pulling me back to reality. I glance at it, but I do not feel the usual rush of anxiety or dread that I once did when I saw a message or a call from someone. I have learned to set boundaries, to control how much of my energy I give to others, and how much I keep for myself. I decide not to check the phone just yet. There is no urgency today. The world will still be there when I am ready to engage with it. Instead, I grab my keys and slip on my shoes. It is time to take a walk. It has become my favorite part of the day. The time when I can be alone with my thoughts, when I can reflect on everything that has brought me here and everything that lies ahead. As I walk through the streets, I notice things I never paid attention to before. The small flowers, blooming along the sidewalk, the way the light reflects off the windows, the sound of birds chirping in the trees. It all feels so new, so alive, as if the world itself is reminding me that I am still a part of it, still capable of finding joy in the simplest things. I think about the choices I have made, the choice to leave behind what no longer served me, the choice to stop living for others and start living for myself. I think about David's call, how for a moment I almost allowed him to pull me back into the life I had worked so hard to move away from. But then I remember the decision I made. I remember that choosing myself was not about rejecting love or connection, but about finding a love that is real and reciprocal, a love that starts within. I realize as I walk that I am not just moving forward through the streets, I am moving forward through my life. I am not waiting for something to happen to me. I am making it happen. Every step I take is a step toward a future that I am creating. One where I am in control. One where I am the author of my own story. I know there will be difficult days ahead. I know there will be times when the path is not as clear, when I will stumble or question myself. But I also know that I am strong enough to face those challenges. I have faced worse, and I have come out the other side stronger, wiser, and more resilient. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be. I am not searching for something outside of myself. I am living in the moment, embracing the present, and allowing myself to move at my own pace. Today is a new day, and for the first time in a long time, I do not feel the need to rush. As I sit in the quiet of the afternoon, a soft light filtering through the window, I am struck by a deep sense of gratitude. It is not something I had expected to feel when I first began this journey, nor was it something I had sought out. But here I am, grateful for everything, even the pain, even the heartache, because it has led me to this moment of peace. I think about how easy it would have been to hold on to the anger, the bitterness, the resentment. How easy it would have been to stay stuck in the past, to keep replaying the mistakes, the broken promises, the disappointments. But I did not. I chose a different path, one that led me to healing, to understanding, and to self-empowerment. Say thank you, not because everything was easy, but because everything taught me something valuable. I have learned that healing is not linear. There are good days, and there are bad days. There are days when it feels like I am making progress, and days when it feels like I have taken 2 steps back. But in the end, it all adds up. Every step, every tear, every moment of doubt has been a part of the process, and I am better for it. I say thank you to the people who have been there for me, those who have supported me through the darkest times, those who have listened when I needed to speak, those who have given me their love without asking for anything in return. You have been my rock, my strength, and my reminder that I am not alone in this world. I also say thank you to the people who hurt me, to the people who betrayed my trust, to the ones who abandoned me. I say thank you, not because I condone what they did, but because their actions forced me to grow. They pushed me to find strength I did not know I had. They taught me what I would not accept and what I would never allow in my life again. I will not forget the lessons learned, and for that, I am grateful. It is strange to think that at one time, I might have wished to go back, to turn back time and make different choices. But now, I know that I would not be who I am today if I had not lived through everything that came before. I would not have discovered the power within me, the resilience that kept me going, the courage to stand tall in the face of adversity. I would not have learned to choose myself. The path I have walked has not been easy, but it has been mine. It has been a journey of self-discovery, of letting go of old narratives and rewriting my story. And I have come to realize that this is not the end. This is only the beginning. There is still so much ahead of me, so many opportunities to grow, to learn, to love. I say thank you for the strength I have gained, for the wisdom I have found, and for the person I am becoming. I say thank you to myself for not giving up, for not surrendering to the pain, for continuing to fight for a better life, a better version of myself. And I say thank you to those who will come into my life in the future, the ones who will see me for who I truly am, the ones who will appreciate the woman I have become, not the woman I once was. I am ready for the relationships that will be built on trust, respect, and mutual love. I am ready for the connections that will enrich my life, not take away from it. Most of all, I say thank you for the peace that now fills my heart, for the quiet moments of joy, the simple pleasures that I now know how to appreciate, for the ability to love without fear, to give without expectation, and to live without regret. I have learned that gratitude is not just a feeling. It is a choice. It is the choice to see the good, even in the midst of the bad. It is the choice to find meaning in the struggles, to find light in the darkness. And as I sit here now, looking back at how far I have come, I realize that I have so much to be grateful for. Thank you. There is something profound about the act of forgiveness. We often think of forgiveness as something we extend to others, an offering of grace to those who have hurt us. But what happens when the person we need to forgive the most is ourselves? Have spent so much time in the past trying to make sense of the choices I made, the mistakes I made, the things I wish I could undo. I have lived with guilt and regret, carrying them like a heavy weight around my shoulders. I thought that if I punished myself enough, if I kept replaying the moments of my past that I was ashamed of, that somehow I could make it right. But now I see that holding on to that guilt has only kept me stuck. It has kept me from moving forward, from truly healing. I have realized that I cannot change the past, no matter how many times I wish I could. I cannot undo the mistakes, the words, or the actions that brought me pain. All I can do is learn from them. All I can do is forgive myself. Forgiveness does not mean that I am excusing the things I did. It does not mean that I am pretending that everything is fine. It means that I am letting go of the burden of guilt. It means that I am acknowledging my imperfections, accepting that I am human, and understanding that I am allowed to make mistakes. We all are. I forgive myself for the times I ignored my own needs in favor of others. I forgive myself for staying in relationships that were not healthy, for tolerating things I should never have tolerated. I forgive myself for not speaking up when I should have, for not standing up for myself when I was too afraid to. I forgive myself for believing the lies I told myself, that I was not enough, that I was not worthy of love, that I had to be perfect to be accepted. I forgive myself for the moments of weakness, for the times I let fear control me, for the times I put off my own happiness in exchange for someone else's. I forgive myself for the years I spent feeling unworthy, for not recognizing my own strength, for not seeing that I was already enough just as I was. I forgive myself for holding on to resentment, for holding on to anger that was never mine to keep, for holding on to relationships that drained me, for staying in situations that kept me small. I forgive myself for being afraid to let go, for being afraid of what might happen if I chose myself over others. But now, I know that I had to choose myself. I had to put myself first to become the person I am today. Forgiveness is not a one-time thing. It is not something that happens all at once and magically makes everything better. It is a process. It is something I have to choose every day. It is something I have to remind myself of when the old doubts and fears try to creep back in. But today, right now, I forgive myself. I forgive myself for the mistakes I made, for the choices I wish I could change. I forgive myself for the pain I have caused myself and others. I forgive myself for not being perfect. And in this forgiveness, I find peace. I find freedom. I find the space to grow, to be better, to move forward. I am not defined by my mistakes. I am not defined by the times I faltered. I am defined by the person I am becoming. A person who is learning to love herself, to trust herself, to embrace her imperfections. So, today, I let go. I let go of the guilt. I let go of the shame. I let go of the self-criticism. And I choose to move forward with love and kindness toward myself. I forgive myself. And in doing so, I am setting myself free. For so long, I lived my life in a cage. Not a physical one, but an emotional one. It was built from my own fears, my own doubts, my own insecurities. It was constructed from the choices I made that kept me small, that kept me in relationships and situations that did not serve me. I stayed in that cage because it felt familiar, because it felt safer to remain in the known, even if it meant sacrificing my true self. But now, I can feel the bars of that cage slowly dissolving. I can feel the weight lifting from my chest, the tension leaving my body. I no longer feel trapped by the past, by the mistakes, or by the need to please others. I am free. Freedom, I have learned, is not just about physical space. It is not just about leaving a place or a situation. True freedom comes from within. It comes from the ability to let go, to release the things, the people, the fears that have held you captive for so long. It comes from accepting that you do not need anyone else's permission to live your life on your own terms. I remember a time when I was afraid to be alone, when I was terrified that I would not be enough without the validation of others. I stayed in relationships. I stayed in jobs. I stayed in situations that drained me because I did not believe that I could stand on my own. I thought I needed someone else to complete me, to tell me I was worthy, to show me that I mattered. But now I know better. Now I know that I am complete on my own. I am enough just as I am. I do not need anyone else to validate my existence. I do not need anyone else to tell me who I am or what I am worth. I am the only one who can do that. And with that knowledge, I am free. I feel free in my choices. Free in the way I speak, in the way I live, in the way I show up for myself every day. I no longer feel the need to apologize for my feelings, my desires, or my boundaries. I am not afraid to say no when I need to, and I am not afraid to say yes to the things that bring me joy, even if they are just for me. I am free in my heart. I no longer carry the weight of past hurts, past betrayals, or past regrets. I have learned to forgive, both others and myself, and in doing so, I have released the pain that held me hostage for so long. My heart is no longer a prison. It is a space of peace, a space of love, a space where I can finally breathe without fear. I am free in my mind. I no longer allow negative thoughts, self-doubt, or fear to control me. I have learned to recognize when my mind is spinning, when it is feeding me lies, when it is trying to pull me back into old patterns of thinking. And when that happens, I stop. I breathe. I remind myself of who I am, of how far I have come. I remind myself that I am not defined by my fears, by my past, or by anyone else's opinions. I am free in my body. I no longer live with tension, with discomfort, with the constant stress of trying to be something I am not. I have learned to listen to my body, to treat it with kindness and respect, to move in ways that feel good, to nourish it in ways that promote health and vitality. I am no longer bound by the need to meet others' standards of beauty, of strength, or of worth. My body is my own, and it is enough. In every way, I am free. It is a feeling I did not think I would ever experience. There were times when I thought the cage would always be my home, when I thought I would never find the strength to break free. But here I am, living a life of freedom, of possibility, of self-love, and it feels incredible. I know that there will still be challenges ahead. I know that there will be moments when I stumble, when I doubt myself, when I feel the old fears trying to creep back in. But I also know that I have the power to overcome them. I know that I am no longer trapped by my own limitations, no longer held hostage by my own fears. I am free to be the woman I am meant to be. And that woman is strong. She is wise. She is capable. She is worthy of love, respect, and happiness. And she is free. For so long, I searched for who I was. I searched in the eyes of others, in the approval of those around me, in the roles I played: daughter, wife, mother, friend. I tried to define myself by what others expected of me, by what society told me I should be. I thought I needed to live up to certain ideals, to meet certain standards, to fit into a mold that someone else had created. But now, I know that I was never meant to fit into anyone else's mold. I was never meant to be anyone else but me. The truth is, I have always known who I am deep down. I have always known the essence of my being, the fire that burns within me, the dreams that have always been part of my soul. I just needed to let go of all the noise, all the distractions, and all the labels that were placed on me over the years. I needed to clear the fog of other people's opinions and let my own voice be heard. I know who I am now. I am a woman who has lived through pain and joy, through heartbreak and healing, through loss and love. I am someone who has learned from every experience, every mistake, and every triumph. I am not defined by my past, but by the strength I have found in moving through it. I know that I am not perfect. I have flaws, I have scars, and I have made mistakes. But those things do not diminish my worth. In fact, they have made me who I am. They have shaped me, taught me, and strengthened me. I no longer see my imperfections as weaknesses. I see them as parts of my story, parts of my journey, parts of the woman I have become. I know who I am because I have finally stopped hiding. I have stopped pretending to be someone I am not in order to please others. I have stopped shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. I have stopped apologizing for being too much, for being too loud, for being too bold. I am who I am, and I will not apologize for it. I know that I am worthy of love, love from myself, and love from others. I am worthy of respect, of kindness, and of happiness. I no longer seek validation from external sources because I have found validation within myself. I have learned to love myself in ways I never thought possible, to embrace my own worth without needing anyone else to confirm it. I know that I am capable. I am capable of achieving my dreams, of overcoming challenges, and of standing tall in the face of adversity. I have proven to myself time and time again that I am resilient, that I have the strength to face whatever comes my way. And I trust that I will continue to rise. No matter what obstacles lie ahead, I know that I am enough. I am enough exactly as I am. Not because I meet someone else's standards, not because I fit into someone else's expectations, but because I am me. I am enough because I have lived, I have loved, I have grown, and I have survived. I am enough because I am living my truth, and there is power in that. As I look back at my journey, I realize that every twist and turn, every up and down, has led me to this place. All of it was necessary. All of it was part of my path. I would not be the woman I am today without every lesson learned, every heartache endured, and every victory won. And I am proud of who I am. I am proud of the woman who has come through so much and emerged stronger. I am proud of the woman who has learned to choose herself, to love herself, and to live for herself. I am proud of the woman who knows her worth and will never settle for less than she deserves. I know who I am now, and I am enough. I am more than enough. As I sit here, reflecting on everything that has brought me to this moment, I am overwhelmed with a profound sense of peace. It is not the peace that comes from the absence of struggle, but the kind that comes from having made it through. It is the peace that comes from having survived the worst of what life could throw at me, and from having learned to embrace who I am in spite of it all. I am not perfect. I am not without flaws, but I am whole, and that is enough. I know that life is not a straight line. It does not follow a clear path, nor does it give us a roadmap to happiness. Sometimes we stumble, sometimes we fall, and sometimes we feel as though the weight of the world is on our shoulders. But through every trial, every challenge, and every painful experience, we are constantly being shaped. The truth is that we are constantly changing, constantly evolving, and it is through these transformations that we find our true selves. For so long, I lived my life seeking approval from others. I sought validation in the eyes of my family, my friends, my colleagues. I thought that if I could meet their expectations, if I could fit into the roles they had assigned to me, then I would finally be worthy. I spent so much of my life trying to be who everyone else wanted me to be that I lost sight of who I really was. I gave pieces of myself away, piece by piece, until I barely recognized the woman staring back at me in the mirror. But the truth is, I was never meant to be anyone else but me. I spent years searching for something outside of myself, searching for the approval I thought I needed. I looked for it in relationships, in achievements, in titles. But every time I reached for it, it slipped through my fingers like sand. The harder I tried to hold on to it, the more it evaded me. I realized eventually that what I was really searching for was not approval, not validation, but self-acceptance. I needed to learn to love myself, to accept myself, to embrace every part of who I am, flaws and all. And that is the first lesson I want to share with you. You are enough just as you are. You do not need to change yourself for anyone. You do not need to meet anyone else's expectations to be worthy. You are worthy because you exist, because you are here, because you are alive and breathing and capable of love, growth, and transformation. No amount of external validation can give you the sense of peace and contentment that comes from within. When I finally accepted myself, when I finally let go of the need for others' approval, that is when everything began to change. I began to step into my power, to own my story, and to realize that I had the ability to create the life I wanted. For the first time in my life, I understood that my worth did not depend on anyone else. It was an incredible realization, one that shifted everything for me. This brings me to the second lesson. Embrace your journey, no matter how messy it may be. Life is not neat, and it is not always kind. We all experience hardships, pain, loss, and heartbreak. But those moments are just as important as the moments of joy and success. Every experience, good or bad, is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become stronger. We cannot change the past, and we cannot control the future, but we have the power to choose how we respond to the present. There were times in my life when I thought that my mistakes, my failures, would define me. I thought that the bad choices I made, the relationships I allowed to harm me, and the paths I took that led nowhere would be the things I would carry with me forever. But I have learned that we are not defined by our mistakes. We are defined by what we do with those mistakes, by how we choose to learn from them and move forward. In my own life, I have made mistakes. I have hurt people I loved. I have allowed myself to stay in situations that were not healthy. But I have also forgiven myself. I have learned to release the guilt and regret that I once carried, because I know that those things do not serve me. Forgiveness, both of others and of myself, is one of the most powerful tools for healing. We cannot move forward if we are holding on to the past, and we cannot grow if we are constantly punishing ourselves for things we cannot change. So, I ask you to let go of the things that weigh you down. Let go of the mistakes, the regrets, and the guilt. They are not yours to carry anymore. You have learned from them, and you are stronger because of them. It is time to move forward. It is time to release the past and embrace the future, whatever it may hold. The third lesson I want to share with you is that you are not alone. Life can often feel isolating. We can feel as though we are the only ones struggling, the only ones who are going through hardships. But I promise you, everyone is fighting their own battles. Everyone is carrying something. We are all in this, together, even if it sometimes feels like we are alone. When I went through my hardest moments, I sometimes felt as though no one understood what I was going through. But then I realized that my story is not unique. We all face challenges, we all experience pain, and we all have moments when we feel like giving up. And it is in those moments when we need each other the most. Sometimes, just knowing that someone else understands, that someone else has been through something similar, can make all the difference. So, I encourage you to reach out. Do not isolate yourself. Talk to someone. Share your story. And let others help you carry your burdens. And when someone else reaches out to you, be there for them. Community and connection are the keys to healing. We are not meant to go through this life alone. We are meant to support each other, to lift each other up, and to walk alongside one another. Finally, the last lesson I want to leave you with is that you have the power to create the life you want. For so long, I believed that my life was something that happened to me. I thought that my circumstances, my relationships, and the choices of others determined my happiness. But now I know that the only person who truly controls my life is me. You have the ability to shape your destiny. You have the ability to choose the path you want to take. You have the ability to say yes to the things that bring you joy, and to say no to the things that drain you. You have the ability to set boundaries, to prioritize your own well-being, and to live a life that is true to you. The power is within you. You are not a passive participant in your own life. You are the author of your story. I know that the road ahead may not always be easy. There will be times when you stumble, times when you feel lost, and times when you doubt yourself. But I promise you, you are stronger than you realize. You have the strength to overcome whatever challenges come your way. You have the power to rise again, to rebuild, and to create a life that is full of purpose and meaning. As I reflect on my own journey, I am filled with gratitude. I am grateful for the lessons I have learned, for the strength I have gained, and for the person I have become. I am grateful for the people who have walked with me, for the love and support I have received, and for the opportunity to share my story with you. I want you to know that you are worthy of love, of happiness, and of peace. You are enough, just as you are, and you have the power to change your story. So, take a deep breath and remember, you are not alone. You are not defined by your past, and you are stronger than you know. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. I wish you peace, love, and all the happiness in the world. The best is yet to come.